So, redemption number 2, redemption video number 2. I could not let it go. It was driving me crazy trying to figure out why I could not get scaffolding to work in Razor Pages with a split project structure. So I have persistence stuff in a separate project from the front end and etc. Could not get it to work on stream today, so I had to keep at it till I got it. And I figured out what the issue was, and amazingly, Microsoft's error was actually pointing me in the right direction. I just wasn't thinking through it on stream. So, pretend you don't see this. So, the issue I was getting was that when .NET Core was or ASP.NET Core was trying to scaffold the Razor Pages based on the entity of course and the AppDB context that I was pointing it to, the issue it ran into was it was saying it couldn't find a DB set of courses, of the course entity. And I was saying, what are you talking about? It's right here. Here's the DB set, right here, right here. It's right here. Literally, it's there. Could not figure out what was going on. I didn't know if it was some kind of just missing design package or something. Could not figure it out. And then it finally occurred to me I had left out the public keyword. So tools outside of the DB context, or classes outside of the AppDB context class, could not see or access my DB sets. Now that was actually originally done intentionally because I'm sort of hybridizing the AppDB context and making it also more like a repository. So I was hiding the DB sets, but exposing methods to create course, update course, delete course, get course, etc. So just added the public keywords back. Scaffolding worked beautifully. Okay, so the next issue that I have figured out today is where DTOs are important and how to utilize them in this system, amongst other things. So to start with, let's look at the scaffolded edit page. So, or rather the scaffolded page model for a Razor page for the course entity. So pretty straightforward. The way it does it is it dependency injects the AppDB context itself, and then it directly manipulates those the object and the context inside of the Razor page. That's obviously not how we want to do it. So that's one issue. The other thing it does is it's actually, because it has to, it can't create things like a view model or a DTO for me. It's actually sending down the course itself. So the course itself, the course object itself is what's being passed to the view, which exposes us, as they point out here, to overposting attacks, among other issues like exposing data we don't want to expose, etc., etc. So I started looking at how to handle this, and actually I looked at this page that they linked here. So this is actually really good. It's a really good tutorial, goes through a lot of the stuff that you need to be aware of, and they talk about it down here, overposting, what it is. They have this try update model thing. There's a number of ways you can work around overposting and those kinds of attacks. The try update model thing is okay, and the way it works is where is it? You specify, so first of all, you prefix form values. Why? And then you also specify only the specific individual properties that you want to allow binding to occur on, basically. You can do the same thing by just adding these properties to your page model and setting the bind property and all kinds of stuff. I didn't like any of that. I want to use view models or DTOs. So let's jump back into the code. And I wrestled with this a good bit, trying to figure out the best way to handle this, how I wanted to handle it. And what I ended up discovering, so when I first rewrote the course page, I had, in the post method here, I had the course DTO come in, obviously, because that's the model we've defined here. And then I was manually creating var course, or actually I can do course equals new course. And then manually setting name equals course DTO, there it is, course DTO dot name, etc., etc. And then passing that into my course service. And I was like, well, I don't really like that, because that's going to end up with any page that I have edits like that. I'm going to have to make those edits. I'm going to have to do the mapping there and then pass the mapped object into the course service or to the equivalent service. Would work, but it means that I'm going to have weird mapping code everywhere, whether it's auto mapper style or manual or whatever. I didn't like that. So what I've ended up doing is, so first of all, I have defined my DTOs, the first two at least, in the core project. So we have the entities, and then we have what amount to command DTOs. I don't really know exactly how the CQRS model, command query responsibility segregation thing. I'm loosely aware that it exists, and there are tools like Mediator that help facilitate it. It's one extra technology that I just haven't had time to learn, and not even technology, pattern that I haven't had time to learn and try to implement here. So I'm going to do the half-assed version. But basically, I have a create course DTO, which does not include an ID, obviously, and an update course DTO, which does include the ID. In this case, the difference is that's the only difference. So there's not really a reason necessarily to have separate DTOs, except I just don't want there to be an ID field on the create at all. I don't want anybody to be able to overpost an ID and end up jacking something up or whatever. So I just have a create course DTO and have an update course DTO. So that's the first thing. And then, so in the create page model, I have that create course DTO as a bound property. And in my actual Razor page, I just say course DTO.name, course DTO.description, etc., for those properties that I want to be edited. Fine, that gets posted back, and then we pass the DTO whole as a first-class citizen to the course service. So then in add course async, the service method, that's where I do my mapping. I create a new course, map over the course DTO values, so that I only have to worry about those values. I don't have to worry about an overposted ID. I don't have to worry about overposted course lessons that shouldn't exist yet, etc., etc. Then I just carry on exactly like I do normally. Validate the course on create, make sure that the required fields are set, everything's happy, and then pass back the actual course that we get back from the database. So it still returns a true course entity. Same thing with update. Pass in an update course DTO, get the course out of the database so we have the actual entity in the change tracker, manually map over the course DTO values, update as normal. All good there. The next issue I had to deal with was my tests, because obviously I broke the crap out of my tests. So how do we address the test? I won't go through everything. The code is going to be published. I'll push this code immediately as soon as I get done with this video, so you can play around with it if you want to. So in the course tests, get is all the getters are fine. They're the same. But in add course async, we start by creating a course DTO filler so that we're only generating the values that we need. Then we map a new course to add from that, because that's going to be what we end up passing in. And that's really it. That's really the only difference for add. So we create the DTO as a course filler. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We use Dynamics Object Filler to generate a create course DTO. We map a new course to add object out of that. And then we map a copy of that as the database course that will be returned to us. And we give that database course an ID and the date created, date updated fields values. And then we set up the DB context to take in any course object and return the database course. This got a little tricky. Trying to figure out how to pass the exact course to add was a pain in the ass, so I just gave up on it. It's not really important. As long as we get back database course, we know what we're passing in the test. And as long as we get back the expected database course, we're good to go. So same thing, we verify that create course async was called, everything else is the same. Update course got a little trickier because I added the method in update course to first access the database and pull back the actual entity from the database, because we're passing in a DTO, not an actual course. So to do that, we have to also mock the select course by ID async method. It's getting a little, not side effecty, but less single responsibility-ish, but I'm still happy with it. So in my test, I basically do the same thing. We set up our times so that our date times are what we expect them to be. And then the other thing I have to do is mock that select course by ID method to return the course that we're updating. That's pretty much it. The rest of the tests updated in very similar ways. And I am happy. So I've not only gotten scaffolding working, which is great because scaffolding does just a huge amount of the work for us. Also, I've never written Razor pages before, so didn't know what to start from, and didn't want to go digging around the entire internet looking for what to start from. So we got scaffolding working. We dropped in our service. We got course DTOs added. Answered that question finally. Validation still works. It'll validate based on data annotations, and as soon as we have any kind of custom validation logic, we can layer that in as well. And yeah, we post it back through there, test pass, everything's good. So it's working. My goal for today was to get the ability to add courses to the database functional, because we had the service ready to go. Of course, it's been changed, but we had it ready to go, and I just wanted to see my website do something. So we have our course page. This is as scaffolded, except that I did replace, instead of passing down a list of the actual courses, I passed down a list of course view models, which will be more important later because we'll modify what's actually sent down. But yeah, we can click create a new course. I have no idea why we want to translate the page from French, but we can add our second course, another course. We can select our course type, which is the built-in select list options from an enum feature. That's cool. Example 2.jpg. Obviously this field, we're not going to set an image URL here. We're going to give them a file input to upload an image. But it works. Woohoo! There's our second course. Ta-da! I feel redeemed. That's all I got for today, folks. That was, like I said, I hate when I close a stream without resolution, without figuring out the thing that was bugging me, but sometimes you just gotta and clear your head, and then the answer becomes obvious, and then all the other answers become obvious. So we've solved a lot of problems today. We figured out why we need to use DTOs, implemented DTOs, scaffolding works, everything works. I'm happy. We can keep building from here. So I'm calling it a day. Thank you for watching, assuming you actually are. Now we'll catch you next time. Thanks.